They make them, we cover them, you sell them. Welcome to OEM Update, where we talk about everything you need to know about this year's vehicle model lines. My name is Megan Cusack, editor of Motorcycle and Powersports News, and today we're going to be talking about the 2026 BMW R12 GS. The R12 GS is a new enduro bike that starts at a base MSRP of $16,995. So, let's dive deeper into what exactly this bike has to offer. But for that, we're going to go straight to the OEM source. Returning today to give us an overview of the 2026 R12 GS is Shawn McLean, Product and Accessories Manager at BMW Motorrad USA. Shawn, thank you so much for coming back to speak with us today.
Thank you, Megan. I always appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and talk motorcycles.
Now, the last time we spoke with Shawn about the 2025 C400 GT, so if you haven't already checked out that video, be sure to do so. All right, so we're at that time of year where the 2026 model announcements are rolling out, but you guys actually rolled out the announcement for the R12 GS way back in the spring here. But for those of our audience who don't know or haven't heard much about it, can you give us a bit of an introduction to this bike and the rider it's targeted towards?
Yes, Megan. And this was I would say, an early model year 26 announcement and early arrival even. It's normally our model year 26s wouldn't be coming out till later in the year. But this was one of our early releases. Production was early, things fell into place, so it was a great time to bring the bike to market. The R12 GS, I tend to think of this bike, although it holds its unique place in our portfolio, it really has some ties back to some of our previous models. Certainly, I would say it's an evolution of our previous generation R9T Urban GS. But that bike, where it looked like it wanted to go off-road, and you can do a little bit of off-roading, it kind of fell short, honestly, when you really got into the fun stuff, so to speak. And then really, if you go back, boy, almost 20 years now, the bike has some roots in our early HP2 Enduro, believe it or not. But it's not, that bike was hyper focused on off-road capabilities, but it wasn't that good to live with on a day-to-day basis. So the R12 GS, has a lot of off-road capabilities. It has that R9T family heritage, but it also has that aesthetic of harkening back to our R80 GS and our Paris-Dakar winning bikes of the 80s. So the customer that's looking for this, customers have been asking for, well, hey, we're going to do another HP2. Well, this isn't really an HP2, but there's certainly some family ties to that bike. It's a great boxer engined GS style bike, a lot of heritage aesthetics, but it's also less complicated than, say, an R1300 GS. And it's, of course, at a lower price point than the R1300 GS. So it's filling a nice niche for a lot of our customers.
So I guess just to clarify then, so more of like a dual sport bike?
Yeah, it's really comfortable living in both worlds. So certainly a dual sport bike. Absolutely, Megan.
Okay, perfect. So what would you say are the main selling points or the main features of the R12 GS?
Well, if I had to call out one thing, I mean, we'll talk about several things here, but there's a package that you can get with a bike called the Enduro Pro package. And that's what's really going to set this bike up for off-road riding. The bike is going to come from the factory with a 21-inch front wheel and a 17-inch rear wheel. With the Enduro Pro package, now you get an 18-inch rear wheel. And that just opens up a whole host of possibilities as far as off-road tires that just were never there before with a 17-inch rear wheel. With that package, you'll also get handlebar risers, hand guards, Enduro footrests, a larger and more robust bash plate. And also, since it's a minor thing, but in a day-to-day living with the bike, it's very important. With that 18-inch rear wheel, the back of the bike comes up. The bike's made so you can easily drop the front forks in the triple clamps. So now the front comes up. Well, with that, you need a longer side stand. So that's also part of the kit. The
Okay.
bike has fully adjustable suspension front and rear. Depending on how you set it up, it'll have 9 to 10 inch ground clearance, give or take 8 inches suspension travel front and rear. So we could talk a lot about, the off-road characteristics of the bike, and that's very important. That's what a lot of people have been looking for, but it's also easy to live with on a day-to-day basis. Things like keyless ride, heated hand grips, ABS Pro, and that's one thing that's really important with the enduro package. Now you can disable ABS on the rear wheel for off-road riding.
Oh,
Headlight
okay.
Pro, so it has cornering headlight. Shift Assist Pro, so that's up and down shifting. Tire pressure monitors. It even has cruise control. It says all these things. Crosspoke wheels, of course, for a BMW GS style bike. Definitely going to have crosspoke wheels. It'll have e-call, a standard, or intelligent emergency call. And for those who don't know, it's also referred to as the SOS button. There's an SOS button, actually says that on the handlebar. So there's a few different ways it works, but it's a safety net. If something should happen, at the push of a button, or even the bike will do it itself, it can reach out to, emergency services. Of course, it has our 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty, roadside assistance, and it also comes with our Ultimate Care break-in service, which means it gets a complimentary first service on the house. So a lot to offer.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so, kind of continuing in that vein there, can you break down some of the technical specifications for us? Like, what kind of engine is this running and all that?
The engine is, it's referred to an R12, or these R9Ts are generally referred to as 1200s. Technically, it's 1170 cc. It's very similar to the old HP2 Sport. Certainly, there's been updates along the way, but that's the basic architecture here. Air and oil cooled. Just been an incredibly robust motor for us. The bike is 505 pounds, ready to ride. And just for some perspective, when we came out with the 1300 GS a couple years ago, we bragged about how that was 23 pounds lighter than its predecessor, the 1250 GS. Well, this bike is 20 pounds lighter than the 1300 GS. So it's really been slimmed down. The way the fuel tank is shaped so you can grab it with your knees. 109 horsepower, 85 foot-pounds of torque. It'll come in 3 colors: night black, light white, which is really the epitome of this style of bike because it really mimics the original white R80 GS from 1980. It's really, really nicely captured. And our option 719, our limited production color, is Sand Rover Matte. It's very sort of a sand colored, some black highlights, and a beautiful red frame. Base price is $16,995. I would say nicely equipped for give or take 18,800. So a nice package. It's at the risk of repeating myself, all the essentials are there, but it's simplified. It's not as complicated, either mechanically or technically as, say, a 1300 GS, but it doesn't have the price point either. So it really fills a nice void there for us.
Okay. And so, how does the R12 GS set itself apart from other members of the R12 family? I mean, looking at it, it definitely shares that heritage look I know that you guys go for in that segment, but it obviously has some differences. The look is a little more off-road oriented than on-road there. But what else can you tell me about what separates
No,
it from?
no, that's it exactly, Megan. As far as you pick up very easily on what's, you're just looking at the bike, and you immediately connect it with the R9T family. You connect it with some of our heritage, yeah, it can have a different gas tank and other things that could be easily bolted on. But what you can miss are two things I would say, one at the front, one at the back of the bike, that really differentiated from the R12, which is more of a relaxed sort of, I don't really want to call it a cruiser, but a very relaxed sort of standard R9T variant, and the R12 9T, which is a little more upright, almost canted forward type of a little sportier riding. This one is on its own. And at the front, the headstock is very different. The headstock part of the frame was designed specifically for the purposes of this bike. It's a little higher, it's a little further forward, and where the rider's going to notice this is particularly off-road riding, where you may be standing, and now your hands just easily drape onto the handlebars. You've got a little better control off-road. That's going to be very apparent when you start to actually ride this bike and what it was meant to ride in those types of environments. If you'll indulge me for a sec, a couple of years ago, I was very fortunate to be in Munich, and some of the designers wanted to show me this bike. It was coming in a couple of years, U.S. market's important, and I got to see an early prototype of this. And somehow they knew, I'm not sure, I didn't tell them, but somehow they knew that I owned and still own today an HP2 Enduro. So that was sort of my benchmark coming in. Is this bike really capable of riding off-road? And I learned one of the things that ties it back to that bike is this bike has that long swing arm that the R12 and R12 9T do not have. One is simply out of necessity. When you have a bike with this kind of ground clearance, you need that longer swing arm. Otherwise, the angle is just going to be too acute. The other thing is, with a longer swing arm and a more relaxed angle, you're going to have a little better traction, a little better control, particularly in off-road environments. So the bones of this bike are really different to start with. And then on top of that, you have all the aesthetics that really set it apart from the family.
All right, excellent. I really appreciate you sharing that, and uh, it just really helps to illustrate what the true differences are there. So I know we've talked about some of the options for the bike. What would you say some of the key accessories are for the R12 GS?
Well, I would say, being that this is a bike that we certainly want customers to go have fun with and go get the bike dirty, they're going to need cylinder head protection, which we offer, overall engine protection bars. Those items I mentioned in the Enduro Pro package, the hand guards, the risers, things like that, even the 18-inch rear wheels, certainly those are available separately. If someone wanted to pick and choose and customize their own bike, they're available. This is a bike that people are going to be traveling with both on-road and off-road. We have navigation units, tank bags, side bags. I think one of the most popular things is going to be auxiliary lights that we offer. That's one of the number one things people put on before the bike leaves the dealership. And I would say maybe one of the last things is, if someone wants that extra protection for the bike, we do offer alarms for the bike. Factory alarms, dealer installed if they want it. Either way, it's a nice sort of extra level of protection for the bike.
All right. And so, how is BMW helping dealers move these new units?
Good question. The best thing we can do right now is make more.
Ah,
There were a lot of internal discussions about this bike, and is it going to resonate with customers? Is this just going to be a niche thing? Are people going to look at it and say, "Oh, I'll just buy a 1300 GS," or is it what we think it really can be? Is its own thing, and people really identify with it, realize the capabilities of it in a less expensive than a 1300 GS, less complex, arguably more capable in the off-road than a 1300 GS. I probably spend too much of my time in the evenings watching YouTube videos, but I watch a lot of reviews on this bike because I'm very interested from those outside views. Internally, of course, we're very tainted about our views, but I want to see what other people have to say. And the number one question of everyone is this bike the real deal? Can it really do what BMW says? And all the glowing reviews have really even upped, number one, the awareness of the bike. Thank you for all the press that we've been getting. and they're all saying, yeah, it really is kind of the real deal. It really is capable. So demand is exceeding our supply right now. We've done our best to, we're increasing production. It's in Berlin, obviously, so that takes a little time to get here. There are obviously, everyone's aware, some issues with international trade right now. We're working through that, not a problem. Our goal is to get those bikes in dealers' hands and ultimately in customers' hands as quickly as possible.
Take that to mean like it's already in dealerships, or it's going to be as soon as we can, help supply meet the demand?
Yeah, the bikes arrived in dealerships. I think the first ones arrived in June of this year.
Okay.
So it's been out there quickly selling, and we would like to get a few more out in dealerships, certainly fill those holes because we know there are customers right now that can't find the bike at their dealership. So, yeah, production has been ramped up. Yeah, but it's been out for a couple months now.
Okay. Perfect. Good to know. All right. Well, it has been a pleasure speaking with you, Shawn, and thank you so much for taking the time today to talk with us about the 2026 R12 GS.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, Megan, as it always is. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the interest, and having a chance to talk motorcycles specifically for the R12 GS. Thank you.
For more information about its bikes or to become a BMW Motorrad dealer, head to bmwmotorcycles.com. And as always, like, subscribe, and stay tuned to MPN for more of the latest and greatest in motorcycle and powersports news.